In 1966, Britain was in the grip of an epidemic. It afflicted children mainly, turned their arms stiff, their voices harsh and metallic, had them screaming words that their parents associated with the worst barbarities of the war. It was called Dalek Mania, and it infected the cinema too. While William Hartnell took on the Daleks at home in black and white, Peter Cushing did it at the Odeon in colour, in Doctor Who and the Daleks and Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. Cushing's Doctor Who was accompanied by Roberta Tovey as his granddaughter, Susie Who, and on their second mission by an accident-prone policeman played by Bernard Cribbins. With both films restored and issued on Blu-ray, we turned the clock back to 2150 AD and reunited Bernard and Roberta Tovey for the first time in 47 years. And joining them was their new companion, Mark Gatiss, one of the movers and shapers of modern small-screen Doctor Who. I asked Mark why Doctor Who in 1966 moved to a medium that was bigger on the inside.
There was a sort of runaway thing with the Daleks, which obviously you can see even from this distance. Something took off straight away. Massive merchandise. The obvious thing to do was to do a big screen spin-off. It's only now you sort of think how odd it must have been for it to sit alongside the show. William Hartnell and then Patrick Troughton were actually on the TV, and there was Peter Cushing on the screen in colour with the colourful Daleks.
And I think the most amazing thing, the whole set was built on one level, the whole of the first Doctor Who film. And the Daleks were actually made slightly bigger than the TV ones. The lights that light up above were bigger than the original Daleks which were on the television, and the plinths were high. I think it was all very much spectacular.
Have you brought anything else from your ship?
No.
You are hiding something. Show it to me.
So what was it like to walk around in this alien world that had been created at Shepperton, this jungle, petrified jungle?
I don't want it to sound very blasé, but it was sort of another job for me. It was a very nice atmosphere. I mean, Gordon Fleming was very nice to me.
The director.
Yeah, it was great. But a lot of people don't realise that I was still having to do schoolwork while this was all going on. Everyone else was said you were having great fun on that set. It must have been wonderful. I had a big playground. I said, no, because I was back in my dressing room doing my schoolwork, which I had to do. So I would actually be called down on the set once they set it up. I think that's what Gordon sort of said, right, one take and I'll give you £1 at the end of it, because they couldn't spare the time. And I thought, OK, I've got you here. And
how much did you make in total?
At the end of it, he gave me 21 shillings.
Oh.
And I still have them to this day.
Enough to buy your own Dalek playsuit, I think.
I wish I'd had my own Dalek at the end of it.
Bernard, you came into this, well, they're a kind of a double bill, in essence, aren't they, now, anyway? But you were in the second Dalek film, Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. That is almost the music, isn't it? Yeah.
So different.
Well, I told you to believe him.
But it's daytime.
Are you sure it's 2150?
Yes, quite sure, Susie.
But, Grandfather, it looks so deserted.
I should say it came.
Well, what's happened to London, then? Maybe it's Sunday.
Of course, it's not Sunday. I'm playing football, Sunday.
Was it difficult to act with the Dalek?
There was an episode that caused a lot of upset on the day. I think it was a scene where Peter and I meet a Dalek for the first time, and the guy operating the Dalek was a guy called Bob Jewell, who was Australian. And the Dalek's the guy inside, shuffling about, and he's coming down the ramp in the spaceship, and we're coming up, we've been captured. And this voice came out saying, "Stand still or you will be exterminated." And Peter and I, we went straight off, you see, an Australian Dalek, talking like that.
Mark, the version of Doctor Who we get here is substantially different from the version that would have been familiar to TV viewers. What revisions did they make to the fundamental basics of the series?
Fundamentally, the Doctor is human. He's called Doctor Who, which is always a source of great merriment, and he's just a scientist who's invented TARDIS.
That's how I always looked at it.
Yeah.
Because, now it's become a Time Lord and everything else. But when we actually started it, the very first, that is how I perceived it. He was my grandfather, who was a scientist, but he's sort of like co-helper.
Yes.
And that's how
your perception of it
was of it.
Yeah.
The second Dalek film is a much darker affair than the first one, isn't it? The first one takes place in this intensely saturated pink and purple world of Skaro, but we come to Earth, and an Earth that is essentially under a kind of Nazi occupation.
Yes, that's right.
Isn't it,
yeah.
Bernard?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Attention! Attention! Survivors of London! The Daleks are the masters of Earth!
The Daleks?
Surrender now! Resist! And you will be exterminated!
Do you detect the influence of these films on contemporary Doctor Who?
I did a story called Victory of the Daleks with Matt Smith where they come back. They're sort of dying out and they find this way of regenerating themselves, and I wanted them to be as colourful as the ones in the film because I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. I think the scale of them when I was a child really stayed with me because of that bass voice and the technicolor fun of it. It seems like the way they should be. If they're not being sort of sinister in shadowy corridors, then you want them to have a kind of real wallop to them, I think.
Exterminate! Exterminate!
Bernard, weren't you offered the part of Doctor Who in 1974? Couldn't John Pertwee have regenerated into you?
No, I wasn't offered the part. John was leaving, and they were looking for another Doctor Who, obviously. So I went along. I think it was Barry Letts who was producing then. And I went in. Hello, yes, right, there we are then. Now then, tell me, what can you do? I said, well, I'm a very good swimmer. Oh, yes, good, yes. I said, I'm no good on horses, don't like that. I said, I was a paratrooper, so I can fight. He said, no, there's no fighting. No, doctor never fights. I didn't get the job. Tom Baker got the job, and one of the first things you saw him do was knock somebody out, which really made me very cross.
Would you have taken it if you'd been offered it?
I would have, like a shot, yes, wonderful.
What do you remember of the reception of the films in the 60s, Roberta? I mean, the first one was a tremendous popular success, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I was a bit overwhelmed by it all. I remember opening stores that are doing exhibitions of it all, and
12 years old.
Yeah, and there was queues and queues of people, and it was really quite overwhelming. I mean, it still overwhelms me now that people are still so interested and hold it with such high affection.
There was talk of a third film, wasn't there, Mark?
There's in the Great What Ifs. There is a third Dalek film. I think because the second one didn't do quite as well, they just abandoned it. But they were going to do a third one based on Terry Nation's third story called The Chase. You can imagine that third film with everybody back, I suppose.
Yeah.
There is a sort of third one because Peter Cushing's performance. He was one of the greatest of our actors, I think, an immaculate actor, and he's in some terrible films, but he's never less than brilliant, I think. Right. But he did a film in 1976 called At the Earth's Core, which is an Edgar Rice Burroughs, and he essentially does his Doctor Who again. They burrowed down into the centre of the earth and found a lost civilization. Right. It's like a Doctor Who story, but it really is it's sort of his third go at it.
Let's talk about him now, because it's interesting that he should be doing a part like this at this point in his career, because in the mid to late 60s, on screen, we're normally seeing him battling blood-sucking moths or stealing people's brains. What was your relationship with him like, Roberta?
Oh, he's very sweet, very nice to me. I mean, I know they always say don't work with children and animals, but I hope I wasn't any trouble to him. I just remember the kindness that he showed when there was any scenes where he was off camera. Sometimes the director will stand in for them or whatever. But one day he'd been finished for the day, he'd gone, changed into his clothes to go home, and he heard that I was doing a shot on set where he would be off camera. And he came down, and Gordon said, no, it's okay, I'll do the lines for Roberta, you know, she's doing... And he went, no, I'll do them, I'll stand off camera for her.
That was Peter, yeah.
And that's what, to me, even though as a child, I appreciated that because he was there for me. It was a very nice family sort of atmosphere.
Roberta Tovey, Mark Gatiss and Bernard Cribbins. And both Dalek films are out now on DVD and Blu-ray and are most exciting.